Welcome to a memorial for Vernon Johnson, my father. Hoping to discuss some of the special things that he brought to potlatch in the community. Dad was actually born in Tinshead, which he insisted to his last breath was the capital of the world. Here he is near Tinshead on his bicycle and his special beanie cap. That's his brother Dwayne, that's Lorraine, and that's Uncle Lynn, and I think that's Linda. Dad was a miner by day and a logger by night. He was a worker extraordinaire. Get it done. His brother Dwayne built roads for Potlatch Corporation, and Dad with his brother Uncle Lynn were, I believe, the highest production two-man crew in the history of the logging world. Dad was an awful good faller. He was a good bucker. But what he was really good at was loading. He often said that hydraulic loaders were child's play, which was correct. He did his incredible work with cable machines. He was phenomenal. People regularly told me, you realize your father's the very, very best. And he liked to elk hunt. He liked sharing his property. That's a tradition I am dedicated to continuing. I'm going to try to find a way to make this property here. This is a cabin that he drugged there with a D6 that burnt down. These are good friends from Pennsylvania. That elk was killed by Aaron Walser. Aaron is a heck of a hunter and was a good friend of my father. This is, I think, the last elk that Dad killed. One of the many stories I'll tell today is about how this elk was bugling so loud he couldn't focus on his loading, so he finally had to go ventilate it. Dad always found the best in every situation. This is our friend Frank visiting from Washington, D.C., and they found an Idaho rock. Dad was pretty excited about that. He loved rocks. When we went to the springs to get a drink of water, it wasn't just the springs, it was the Fountain of Youth, and everybody needed to be careful because they were going to get so young they might forget how to talk. Dad loved his cabin and was always very entertaining out there. Toward the end, it became a source of conflict, which bothered him some, but he tried to block it out. Play was always important with Dad. He, in this case, would take four-wheelers and knock trees into people. He was definitely not very safe at times. Here he is on his house in the hill with his Harley Davidson. On a day when it was 40 below zero out, Dad would put the truck tire chains on every wheel, not once or twice, but 4 or 5 times. He was unstoppable. It was my goal to keep him in this house forever. I could not get anybody else on board with that concept. I wanted him to have a logging museum in that shop up there, sell postcards and tell stories about all these tools that none of us could figure out. I think that would have been the best case scenario, but I couldn't get others to agree. This two-man McCulloch saw was owned by his father, I believe. He used to say that this saw could be filed while it was running wide open. The chain moved so slow. It still ran there toward the end. I think Larry Eustis ended up with it. These malls and distance and whatnot, he could tell you when they all came out. He could tell you everything about these saws. This was a cedar stump that he used. I think it had one of my bloody boots in it, and hard hats and ride saws and all sorts of weird chainsaws. This was his favorite of 20 or so Mack trucks that he had. This was his dad's. Charlie's going to keep that and keep rolling it around town. It's got a good dump bed on it. I could sure use it in North Carolina, but it's a long ways away. The auctioneer, when he went through the house, he asked me, he said, "Did you know that your dad had some bottles?" And I said, "No, I don't think there's any bottles around there. I haven't seen any." Obviously, Vern was a collector, and he and Mom dug through a lot of old houses to get these bottles. And it was the same with coins and guns. He never sold one. He just collected them. He had zillions. So here's a shot of his property, which I wish he would have kept. He could have kept, and he should have kept. He should have stayed right there on that hill. We could have provided care providers. But lots of stories about that land, and he loved his grandkids. He had a lot of cool cars, and he was studied by some people that knew a lot about dementia. And I think, losing his wife after 51 years just kind of took a part of him that was hard on him. He made lots of trips out of McMurray's property. He hated gates. He hated cows because they always shat in the road. And he sent me 6 boxes of letters. And every box would have pictures, or every letter would have pictures of these farmer logs. And I, having spent 21 summers in the woods with him, I complained a couple times. I said, "Why do you always send me pictures of farmer logs?" And he wouldn't explain. But I figured it out eventually. Vern was always up to something. He was always scheming. More than anything, my dad, Vernon Johnson, was somebody who responded to genuine people. He responded to love. And we would visit him, and day one he would be pretty lonely and downtrodden, but by the time we were there for 3 or 4 days, he would be a completely different person. And he just warmed up, and I just really am thankful for the care providers that he did get and the joy that he had. Toward the end, things weren't so good, but until COVID came along, he was doing pretty well. So thanks to everybody for remembering my dad. I'm sure there'll be some stories about what he did for the city, what he didn't do for the city, and just the character that he was. He was always coming up with unique ways of looking at things and saying things, and he didn't like when things didn't make sense. So for some reasons, I'm kind of glad he wasn't around to really comprehend this COVID bullshit. But rest in peace, Dad. You are remembered, and you are special. And here's his grandson, Fox, chopping a hole in his shin.
Good job, Fox.
No, say it one more time.
I say, we'll be having you up here, so we'll be getting any snow, probably.
Can't get anybody else to make a statement, though.
Oh, I love it.
I love it,
Hey,
too.
only in America could you come to a celebration like this in a 34th Studebaker.
The 34th Studebaker, yeah.
What a country.
Uh-huh.
What a country, he used to say. Every day's Christmas. Don't forget to laugh. Dad was one of those positive and genuine forces that just had a nonstop need for things to make sense. And in that respect, he was and will always be remembered.